Welcome to Titans of Terror, where we look at the men and women who have shaped the horror landscape. Today's subject, horror maestro Wes Craven. Wesley Earl Craven was born on August 2nd, 1939, in Cleveland, Ohio, and raised in a strict Baptist family. During his senior year at Wheaton College, he developed GBS, which is a rapid onset muscle weakness caused by the immune system damaging the peripheral nervous system. Luckily, he recovered and went on to get his master's degree in philosophy and writing from Johns Hopkins University. West then embarked on teaching college and high school students. During this time, he purchased a used 16mm film camera and began making short movies. In 1964, he married Bonnie Broker. They had 2 children, then divorced 5 years later. His friend Steve Chapman informed him of a messenger position at a New York City film production company, where his first creative job was as a sound editor on industrial films. He also started working on adult films. Wes worked up the ranks and broke into professional film editing with the low-budget comedy drama You've Gotta Walk It Like You Talk It, or You Lose That Beat, in 1971. As of 2023, that film is now considered lost, although the soundtrack by the future Steely Dan survives. In 1972, Wes made his directorial debut with the revenge exploitation film The Last House on the Left, produced by future Friday the 13th director Sean S. Cunningham. Wes based his script on Ingmar Bergman's 1960 film The Virgin Spring. He originally wrote the film as an adult movie, but decided to rewrite it as a violent horror film. He had to recut the film numerous times to receive an R rating from the MPAA. The United Kingdom refused to certify the film for release. It did briefly get a home video release in the 1980s. However, the video nasty scare led the film being banned in the UK until 2002.
Here is the first motion picture to offer to the daring a look into the final, maddening space between life and death. The Last House on the Left. To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Sights and sounds far beyond anything you've tested. The Last House on the Left. To avoid fainting, keep repeating.
It's only a movie. Only a movie. Only a movie.
Take as much as you can.
Only a movie.
While the critics were split, the movie was highly profitable, grossing over $3 million at the box office against a $90,000 budget. Wes, however, was ostracized due to the content of the film. So he attempted to move away from the horror genre by writing non-horror films with his partner Cunningham. Unfortunately, none of them attracted any financial backing. Searching for a story to film, Wes learned of the legend of Sawney Bean, the alleged head of a 48-person Scottish clan responsible for the murder and cannibalization of more than 1,000 people. This ultimately led to Wes writing his next film, 1977's The Hills Have Eyes. It was shot in the Mojave Desert due to Nevada's relaxed filming situation and featured 2 future horror icons, Dee Wallace and Michael Berryman. This film was also successful and cemented Wes as a horror director. Wes relocated from New York to Los Angeles and got invited to make an occult-themed television movie. So in 1978, he unleashed Summer of Fear, aka Stranger in Our House, starring Linda Blair. This movie was a fantastic learning experience for Wes, as this film included many firsts for him, such as shooting on 35mm, using a crane, using a dolly, and working with a bona fide Hollywood star. It first aired on NBC TV on Halloween night, 1978. Wes's next film would be Deadly Blessing in 1981, which was a critically panned slasher film starring Ernest Borgnine with an early role for Sharon Stone. While the film was ultimately disappointing, it showed that Wes had a lot of promise going forward. The next year, Wes tackled the DC Comics superhero film Swamp Thing, featuring Adrienne Barbeau, Louis Jourdan, and Dick DeRock in the title role. This was Wes's attempt to show the major Hollywood studios that he could handle action, stunts, and major stars. He also delivered the film on time and on budget. The film did well on home video and cable and was eventually followed by a sequel. Around this time, Wes married for a second time to actress Mimi Mayer, now known as Mimi Craven. This marriage also lasted 5 years. In 1984, Wes returned to television and directed the supernatural horror film Invitation to Hell, which follows a family who are threatened to join a mysterious country club in their new Southern California community. It starred television veterans Robert Urich, Joanna Cassidy, and Susan Lucci. Later that year, Wes unleashed one of his most popular films, A Nightmare on Elm Street, starring Heather Langenkamp, Johnny Depp in his debut role, John Saxon, and the enigmatic Robert Englund as horror icon Freddy Krueger. The film was inspired by a series of articles in the LA Times about Southeast Asian men that died during their nightmares. Some aspects of the film were even autobiographical, as Freddy was inspired by an elderly man that startled Wes as a young man. The character was even named after Wes's childhood bully. This film, of course, gave birth to a multimedia franchise juggernaut that is still going strong today. The next year, Wes returned to his roots by making a sequel to The Hills Have Eyes. It was unanimously loathed by critics and fans as a dull, derivative slasher flick. He also made another television film called Chiller, about a corporate executive who dies and is cryogenically preserved but returns without his soul. He also took a turn directing 7 episodes of the 80s reboot of The Twilight Zone, one of which gave Bruce Willis his first featured role. Next up, Wes directed the sci-fi horror film Deadly Friend, with a young Christy Swanson as a brain-dead teen brought back to life to go on a killing spree. Studio interference plagued the final cut, and the movie tanked at the box office. In 1987, Wes co-wrote and executive produced the third Freddy Krueger film called A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors. Due to immense dissatisfaction with Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, Wes returned to the series to co-write the screenplay with the intention that it would end the series. However, the success of Dream Warriors prompted a continuation. 1988 brought The Serpent and the Rainbow, a nightmarish Haitian voodoo tale starring Bill Pullman. It was praised by some critics and did fairly well at the box office. It has since become a cult favorite. In 1989, Wes gave us Shocker, a supernatural slasher film about a serial killer sentenced to the electric chair that uses electricity to come back from the dead and carry out his vengeance. The film was Wes's response to the diminishing quality of the Freddy Krueger film series. 1990 brought Wes back to the television movie one final time when he directed Night Visions, which was about a police sergeant teaming up with a psychic to track down a serial killer. Wes's next film, The People Under the Stairs, followed 2 robbers and a young boy who become trapped in a house belonging to a neighbor's crooked landlord. The story was partially based on a real news story from the 1970s where 2 burglars caused the police to discover 2 children locked away by their parents. The film was a surprise hit and has been applauded for its satirical depiction of gentrification, class warfare, and capitalism. Wes's last foray into episodic television was 1992, when he directed 6 episodes of Nightmare Cafe, which starred Freddy Krueger actor Robert Englund. In 1994, Wes returned to write and direct the metafictional 7th installment of the Nightmare on Elm Street film series entitled Wes Craven's New Nightmare. The film portrays Freddy Krueger as a fictional movie villain who invades the real world and haunts the cast and crew involved in the making of the films about him. Here, Freddy is depicted as closer to what Wes originally intended for the character, more menacing and less comical. Unfortunately, the film underperformed and became the poorest performing film in the series. It has, however, become a fan favorite and is much loved today. The next year, Wes helmed the vampire comedy Vampire in Brooklyn, starring Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett. This too failed at the box office, but has become a cult classic, like many other Wes Craven films. 1996 would bring a massive resurgence to Wes's career when he directed the breakout hit slasher film Scream. Through the strength of word of mouth, the film was catapulted to massive success. Wes had another horror icon in his hands, the mysterious Ghostface. Again, this story was a metafictional horror film, this time with self-referential humor. So of course, a sequel had to follow. Scream 2 arrived just a year later, this time satirizing horror sequels. It was another smash hit. Next up, Wes completely changed gears and directed a biographical musical drama entitled Music of the Heart. It was based on the true story of Roberta Guaspari, who co-founded the Opus 118 Harlem School of Music and fought for music education funding in New York City public schools. The film starred multi-time Academy Award winner Meryl Streep, Aidan Quinn, singer Gloria Estefan, and Angela Bassett. Wes then returned for Scream 3, this time of course satirizing the trilogy cliché. This time the violence was toned down a bit due to current events such as the Columbine High School massacre. It was initially intended to be the final Scream film, however it too was successful. Wes's next film was Cursed, literally and figuratively. The film stars Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg as two orphan siblings attacked by a werewolf in Los Angeles. The film was plagued with reshoots, plot changes, and re-edits brought on by the Weinstein brothers as producers. The film tanked at the box office, and Wes was very displeased with the final movie. In 2004, Wes married film producer Aya LaBunca, then best known for such films as Heathers and Meet the Applegates. He went on to produce 2 Wes Craven films. In 2008, Wes soared as he directed Red Eye, a psychological thriller that follows a hotel manager ensnared in an assassination plot by terrorists while aboard a red-eye flight to Miami. The film was a box office success. Next up, Wes took part in an anthology film called Paris Je t'aime, which included 18 short films set in different districts of Paris. Wes's short, Père Lachaise, was a romantic comedy about a young woman visiting Père Lachaise Cemetery, breaking up with her fiancé, who then redeems himself with the aid of advice from the ghost of Oscar Wilde. After this, Wes took a bit of a hiatus from filmmaking. In 2010, Wes returned by writing, producing, and directing My Soul to Take, about a serial killer returning to his hometown to stalk 7 children who share the same birthday as the date he was allegedly put to rest. The film did not perform well with critics or the general public. Wes's final film was Scream 4, which took on people's extensive use of social media and the obsession with internet fame. The film was another great success. In his spare time, Wes was a nature lover and committed bird conservationist, serving as a longtime member of the Audubon, California Board of Directors. He actually penned a monthly column for Martha's Vineyard magazine called Wes Craven's The Birds. He has also written a novel called Fountain Society. In 2014, Wes developed a 5-part comic book series called Coming of Rage with writer Steve Niles. Wes Craven then signed a television deal with Universal Cable Productions and had a number of projects in development when he died of brain cancer at his home in Los Angeles on August 30th, 2015. He was 76 years old. Wes Craven has become synonymous with genre-bending, innovative horror, challenging audiences with bold visions, heart, guts, and humor. Wes Craven has created some of the best horror icons and stories of any generation. The Bat salutes Wes Craven, a true titan of terror.